Happy weekend, everybody. How you doing? Hey, Rage, how's your Saturday shaping up?
It's going pretty great. We had the builder for the house come in today, touching up couple little things, and now my air circulator isn't just on full blast all the time, which is great.
Excellent. Yeah. Although, with the weather lately, a full blast air circulator doesn't sound that horrible. Honestly,
Not the worst thing in the world. No,
kind of warm out, just a little bit. Hey, Board. Hey, Pookie. How's your weekend? Let's hear it. My plan worked to get a longer panel because I can still watch the game in another tab.
Devious.
He got us.
Devious scheming.
Yep. Good. All right. Everything wrong with and how to fix it. Resident Evil 8, where you can complain about anything you want in the game as long as you have a proposal for how to make it better. The only thing you're not allowed to do is, this game sucked.
Yes, but why? And how do you fix it?
Yes.
Because it just complaining doesn't really get you anywhere. Thank you, Pookie. I really do like this shirt quite a lot. Just complaining doesn't get you anywhere. All it does is build negativity. It doesn't actually solve any of these problems. So we want to focus on, yes, there are problems with Resident Evil 8, some pretty glaring ones. But the way to get through this is by finding solutions to those problems and sharing them with the community so people don't make those same mistakes.
Capcom might not listen to this, though they should. However, a bunch of indie game designers might watch this. Hopefully. Yes, it is the face from Dark Souls 1 when you set all the sliders to maximum. Like that. Yup. Which inspired Pope Soapy. Yes, it did inspire Pope Soapy, who just drove right through the middle of Face's head.
Poor mind blank. Got split in half.
Oh, good times. So, quick show of hands. Let's get the chat engaged. Who has played it? I want one hand, and if you've seen it, put one hand up. If you've played it, put both hands up. Who's seen and played RE8? That's what happens when you set the slider for top half distance from bottom half slider to max. Does that mean arrows can go through my face?
Yeah, totally moves the hitbox. It doesn't move the hitbox.
Just a hitbox hole right here.
I wish that's how that worked. But
Yeah.
hitboxes are actually very difficult.
Oh my god, yes. I look forward to the day when we can have donut hitboxes. One hand watched multiple people play it. Okay, so we've got a whole lot of one hands in the audience. We've got this one. I am a double. Have you actually played it yet, Rage?
I can't.
Oh, yeah. Well, you can mod it, I guess, but I'm very, very thankful that I don't get motion sickness.
I'm not giving them money until they put an FOV slider in it.
That's totally fair. You watched some of it. Too gory. It is quite gory. Wonderful game if you're a hand masochist.
Yeah, you could say that. That is a thing that you could say.
Yeah, if you're a hand masochist, you're just gonna love the game. Maybe a little too much. Maybe don't play it with other people in the room.
Yeah, play it on your own.
You'll worry your friends. I promise you. All right. So a bunch of people that played it. So where do we want to start? How do we want to start this?
Well, I mean, there's the low-hanging fruit. of put the FOV slider back in the game. It was in 7.
Simple, quick fixes. You want to start with that then? Because that's not even like we have to spend a lot of time talking about it. Just add a damn FOV slider so people can play it.
Well, and it's not even adding. Like, it's in the engine. They have the ability to set it. They had it in 7. The engine hasn't changed. Just turn it back on.
Implement a damn FOV slider.
There you go.
Implement is a better word. Yes. Any other quick, simple fixes? Reactivate? Yeah, pretty much. Anyone else got simple, quick fixes? Things that we don't need to spend time diagnosing? Gentleman Dapper, it's Capcom. They don't get any money until they unlock your SF5 base game characters. They're never getting your money then. That's it. They're never getting it. They're never doing that, so. But it was a good game.
It would also be nice to be able to, turn off the anti-aliasing and sharpening filter without using a hex editor.
Better graphics options without need for hex editor. Who even knows hex anyway? Do we count the flying guys getting stuck under the roof at the castle?
Nah, it's just collision. Collision's hard.
Yeah, that's any game could do that, and that shit happens. Hey, Zelo, welcome. Welcome! Collision is hard indeed, especially when you're hitting a wall.
Or multiple walls.
Oof. I was actually meaning really hitting a wall is hard. It hurts.
Yeah, that too.
Or anything that isn't a square colliding with another square slowly. Yes. Yes. As soon as you start rounding off those edges and having more than 8 vertices to represent the object, it gets super confusing. Anybody who's done slightly advanced math, even I think Math 12 starts getting into some of it where you're trying to find out if this sphere touches another sphere in 3D space. That's kind of what games are doing all the time.
And trying to do as many times per second as possible. It's very difficult.
Yep. And it gets even worse, because when you have 2 objects, you got to test each object to each other. But then when you have 3 objects, suddenly you have 6 tests. And then when you have 4 objects, you get more like 16 tests. And it gets really scary. So you can now understand why, what was that game called? Twing Twang. Why Twing Twang had no frames. Because they were all actual objects. Every time I struck the boss, it was trying to find out if I struck the boss or any of the units around the edges.
Which is, cool that they attempted it, but didn't work.
Your developers were so busy trying to figure out if they could, they never stopped to think if they should.
The answer was no.
Generation of developers that should have fucking watched Jurassic Park.
I'm pretty sure most of the ones for that game did.
Then they have no excuse. No excuse.
None.
That is the lesson Jurassic Park was teaching us. Think before you do. It's not always a good idea. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. Alright, simple fixes. Before we get into the fun, complex ones. Because we have some shit to say.
I think that's basically it for... Well, and I mean, full closed captioning would be nice for people who are extremely hard of hearing. But I think that's it for the super easy stuff.
Which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, they didn't make a lot of fundamental mistakes.
No,
Most of them were just awkward design choices.
It just makes the FOV slider and stuff so much more glaring.
Yeah.
To miss when you haven't missed anything else. Hey, Talesha, I need captioning so I can eat chips while gaming. I understand. I need closed captions so I can eat chips while watching TV shows. Nothing worse than crunch. Oh, I missed something.
Especially if you're eating like super crunchy chips and then you're like, oh, there's important dialogue going on, but these chips are so good. I didn't.
Yeah. Oh, dialogue. Stop eating. Okay, shooting. Eat. Oh, they're talking. Yeah, that's no good. Nobody wants that. An auto fire option for every weapon. We'll discuss that one later. That one needs more discussion because it weighs heavily on lots and lots and lots of mechanics in the game. Especially knives. For folks who suffer from RSI, but does have full controller rebinding.
Yeah, so you could put it on a different button.
That makes it easier
some
for
other
you.
Device.
Yeah.
Some other control.
So, before we go tearing things apart and talking about all the flaws, let's praise the game for a little bit. Because it does deserve some praise.
Oh yeah, this is actually quite a good game.
Absolutely nailed the horror tropes. Actually made me feel tense at times. Made me feel tense at times with the horror tropes. Like, I love horror.
Yeah, Deus is a bit of a horror junkie, if you will.
It doesn't bother me. I love it. I watch it all the time.
The puzzle fights. Come on, Brian. The puzzle sections I thought were quite well done, especially the dollhouse.
Dollhouse deserves special call out. Super creepy. Yep. Boss fights. I'm not going to put it under the good yet. We'll talk about boss fights more. Some of them were good.
The characters were good, though.
Characters were very well written and believable. With there's a term I'm looking for here. Their motivations were grounded in actual.
I have no idea what you're going for.
Yeah, I can't right now. Believable. There we go. We'll just pretend that sentence ended there. Yeah, tension I called out. Horror tropes. Great tension. Actually, that's a good movie if you haven't seen Tension. High Tension. That's a good one to watch. Me and Pookie watched it years back. It's a French horror movie. I recommend it to you too, Rage. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll probably go check it out.
Yeah, a very interesting movie. Pookie liked it. I liked it. It's definitely got some gore, but it's got a great ending. Great ending. Is it about the horrors of not being able to tune your guitar? That was a bad joke. It was, but it still made Rage laugh, so it's fine.
That's why I liked it so much.
The cover for it is like a girl with a concrete saw covered in blood. Yeah. That's all you need. How was the shooting? Solidly mediocre. Exactly where the shooting should be in a Resident Evil game.
AKA, it was fine.
Yeah, solidly mediocre. It was okay. Felt like the game made good use of the first-person perspective. Continues to use first-person perspective very well. Yes. 7 used it very well as well. Even little things like we talked about during our review of it, the block animation, putting your hands up in front of your face, like it might have been the same animation all the time and not make sense that it hits your body and this still protects you, but it's visual, so you know if you're blocking, and it's a constant reminder that you're missing your fingers. Every time you block, you see bandage and just these 2 fingers gone. You're like, oh yeah, I'm in hell. I'm thinking of the scene when those two fly ladies are dragging you down the hallway. Yes. And when they hang you up. Yep, they do a great job of putting you in the body of the character when they do that. Fantastic job.
Big agree.
Also shouts out to Seven at the same time for the same thing during the car scene and all the intro and stuff like that when your hand gets cut off and you have to reattach it and you're crawling. Same idea. It's exactly the same thing. Obviously the team knows what they're doing on that front and they've watched a couple horror movies. Just a couple. You know what I'd really like to see? I'd like to see...
Pseudo!
Hey, it's a pseudo! I would like to see a Hellraiser influence in the next Resident Evil.
Also wouldn't mind an Evil Dead.
You're kind of distorted there, Pseudo.
Oh boy, give me a sec.
You might want to change your sample rate and then put it back again.
Because that's a thing that has to happen. You know what I would like to see? Pseudo arrives. Yeah, that's definitely something I would like to see. You're right. Everyone's happy when a pseudo shows up. There we go. Oh geez, the settings. Yeah, the app that we use for our... Oh yeah, settings, yeah. Oh man. All of the levels are so unique and different and yet look like they belong. Oh man. Oh man.
And I gotta say, I love the transition between the aesthetic of the village to the castle, to the village, to the dollhouse, to the village, to Heisenberg's factory thing.
They gave you a tank.
And they did give you a tank. That's true. They did do that.
That goes under the good. There's a great aesthetic continuancy. Nice word. Well said. Yes, I agree. That was another thing that we heavily focused on in our review of it, is that while every area is unique and different, like you take a picture and you look at it, you know it's RE8 and you know what area of the game it is. Instantly. You can damn near take a picture of a wall and know the area of the game. That's impressive. There's fan leggings for the dollhouse.
What?
Like leggings that fans can buy? Or I'm confused.
Or leggings for fans? But specifically for use in your dollhouse?
Way to massacre that sentence. Someone made art with dollhouse themed leggings. Awesome. RE8. The dollhouse turns into Baba Yaga's house. Yeah. And like we said, every area is hitting horror tropes. Horror tropes the whole way through. You may not be scared of it, but someone is scared of that. Once again, they had the small flying insects.
Small flying insects, not large flying insects this time. Not nearly as creepy.
We've established that Baba Yaga's hut is your dream house. Oh.
It's true. We did establish that in chat while you were playing through that section.
Interesting. I missed that.
And go through all the phases of Baba Yaga. The John Wick assassin Baba Yaga, then the old lady Baba Yaga, and then the mythical beast Baba Yaga.
A great review of the game boils down to the main character's sole motivation of the game is, let me see the child, except for that one place where the character's main motivation is, I do not want to see the child. You mean his main motivation was, let me see the child. Pieces. Baba Yaga is my endgame goal. Man for my actual life. I wish you luck with that. I hope that works out. I do. Always want it to work out for people. Anything you want to add here, Pseudo? We've done quick, simple fixes while you were gone. Just the little, like, we don't even need to suggest ways to fix it. You just need to address this.
I'm just trying.
Oh, yeah, still.
Nope.
Okay.
Still working on audio.
Just trying to fix that stuff.
No worries. Now, and then we did the good, because before we tear apart a game that we actually genuinely enjoyed, we do like to say there's good in it. We don't want to focus on the bad. That's also why, if you want to bitch at the game, you got to recommend a way to fix it. You can't just tear it apart. It's too good to just tear it apart. Okay. Everything wrong with. Do we want to do the fix right away, or do we want to just list the wrong with?
My main complaint is it's expensive and I'm very poor. I will be right back.
Rage is like, yeah, I'm out. Peace. All right, chat. Do we want to just list out the things wrong with and then look at how to fix them? Or do we want to go, this is something wrong, and talk about how to fix it and then move on to the next subject? How do you want to do it? This is only our second time doing one of these. And it's for you guys and gals. Gals and guys. Yes, more Eldritch Horrors is nice. Everyone likes Eldritch Horror, especially after Bloodborne. You could do a combination. You could list the things and then make an identical point that includes the fix. That way, if we miss any of the first pass through, we can add them in after.
I return.
That is a good suggestion. Glencon's a pretty sharp individual. Actually, yeah. We're gonna do it this way. Nope. Nope. No. Stop. You're ruining everything. Okay, I'm gonna list it that way. Everything wrong with, and then a number 1, and how to fix it, because we're going to do points, and then underneath the points will be numbers for fixes.
Nice.
Telekinesis kicked in. Lucky. Still waiting for that. I ordered it from Amazon weeks ago. Where's my telekinesis?
Womp womp. It's on its way. Stuck in customs.
Okay. I'm waiting for Pseudo to pop back in. Why don't we start with something that isn't the beginning of the game?
Okay. Something that isn't the beginning of the game. That's what I've been thinking about all day, honestly.
What, things that are wrong with the game other than the beginning?
No, things specifically the beginning of the game and how to fix it.
Yeah.
Because there's just so much good in that game. There's...
Okay, well, let's take it from chat then. Other than the beginning of the game, what do you guys think? Glenn says boss fights. Some boss fights, but let's be specific. Let's really narrow it down. Exactly what about what boss fight? All right, if we want to be specific, or if we want to talk about what's wrong with the game and how to fix it, truly, we can't be vague. We can't be generic. We've got to be very, very specific about our assertions. We don't want any failed asserts.
So while Glencon is typing, there's the issue of ammo versus enemy HP.
Honestly, on normal, I found it fine. Yeah, I think it was fine on normal. Felt like the fish boss dragged on too long, but maybe it's better when you're playing. I think the biggest part of the fish boss fight dragging on too long is a lot of people that you're probably watching play for the first time just don't know how to fight him.
Yeah, the fish boss was not terribly intuitive.
He's not a great boss. So let's add fish boss. Oh hey, you know what you guys need? You guys need a link to this shit. Here you go. Have a there you go. Have a Titanfall 2 background while I fix this.
I should hopefully sound better now.
Nope.
It's still crackly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it happens the moment I join OBS Ninja then.
That's awesome.
Maybe it's trying to capture the wrong audio device. It consistently chooses the wrong ones for me.
Yeah, that's the thing. It does to me too. Like I'll set them right and then I'll jump in and then I have to check my settings after I get in because it always changes them back to wrong. Like I was saying, we use a beta for our video audio sharing for the stream. That's why you get such nice video quality on the other people in the stream and everything's injected nice. It really is an amazing, amazing product and free, which boggles my mind. So I'm not going to complain about the few little issues we have because it handles everything so goddamn well. Hey, timers, panel, activate.
Yeah, the thing that I take issue with the fish boss fight is there's not a very good indicator of where you need to shoot him.
Yeah,
because his HP isn't actually all that high.
Yeah, no, he dies really quick when you start shooting him in the spots that take damage. He just has massive damage resistance over a large part of his being.
But they don't really give you a clear indication of, hey, shoot here.
Yeah. If you can jump in, I've got something in my hands. I can't type, but you can go ahead and type Moreau/fish boss and then do some points under. One of the things I would recommend is just making the human in his mouth stand out more.
Make it orange, like in every other Resident Evil game.
Yeah, or give it a glowy spot. Something like that.
I think I fixed it.
Yep.
You did.
Hey.
Hard to tell where to shoot him. Weak points. Orange.
Well, yellow was your there's items to loot here color.
Yellow is your progression or something interesting color in the game. But the tradition for RE games is you shoot them either in the red or the orange spots.
Usually they're also like big and pulsating and pretty obvious. They're you look at it and you're like, I need to shoot it and that big target on it. He just didn't have that. And in order to make that target show up on him, you got to shoot him in the belly area to actually bring it out. Which it takes a little bit of damage in that area, but it's like, how do you know? It doesn't look any different than the rest of his body. The only way to know is to lay a few rounds in there a few times and start putting it together that every time I do that, he opens his mouth. And when he opens his mouth, there's nothing to tell you that that's his weak point other than the fact that he kind of stops to do a different attack there and then hides it. And it was just, you know, the only reason I'm dying at the beginning or in that part, I'm gonna change this to this. There we go. So yeah, just you know, like he's already mutated, right? He's all puffed up.
There's no reason he couldn't be orange.
Yeah, just have a pustule or you know a mark of the mold growing on him. Oh, by the way, this is full of spoilers. So
just in case.
If there was, I missed it.
It wasn't obvious enough.
It seems fairly spoiler-free to me.
For those of us with bad memories, it can be.
Yeah, it wasn't telegraphed very well. It was just in a piece of writing. If anything, maybe have something happen on the way up where you see him get hit there and not like it. You know, something little, anything like that. You know what? Even if you shot him there and he like screamed at you or freaked out and didn't like it, it would make it obvious, like, oh, something different has happened here. It wouldn't be as good as the glowing point, but even that would have been better, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it definitely would be better, but it still has a fair amount of guesswork in it. And like, as much as making the weak points a different color makes it seem like, oh, you know, this is just your highlighted objective from the early 2010s when every game did that. It does draw your eye towards it and you go, oh, that's a weak point.
Yeah.
Rather than having to experiment and just go, well, I guess that didn't work because he didn't make any different noises, so I guess it didn't deal any more damage.
Especially on bosses that are fairly large and have, you know, a bunch of surface area, you can start to be a lot of kind of just shooting at random stuff. You're not even sure if stuff's working at all. Nice to have a little bit of nudging there. And like they've done like the boil stuff before where it's like a different colored thing or something like glows a bit, or even if it's just like every, not constant, but every like couple seconds or something, there'd just be a bit of yellow on there or a little bit of a glow or something like that. It could just be like a subtle hint.
You know what? I would even be cool with making him a touch harder, but more obvious. Let's say that the glowing spots on his body take on the little body that comes out of his mouth, take the 100% damage. His body is like 0, right? Like his main fish body. The chest is probably like 10 or 20%. So make the human part take 50%, and then the pustules on the human take 100. And now you've got fine pieces to shoot on that little body that comes out. You're getting a bonus no matter what. You've made it more obvious so the player can more quickly tell, but it's harder to execute.
I would scale it differently. I would scale 100% on the body and like maybe 120 on the pustules. But yeah, I do like that idea of really rewarding that extra bit of skill.
Yeah, I think making 100% on the body still and then even more on the pustules would just make it way too easy because it's already not that hard. Like, it's not a hard fight once you figure it out. And as soon as you start showing the points to shoot, it's going to get way easier. Way quicker because you're not going to be working to figure it out.
Then you can up his HP pool, right? Because you're not going to be wasting ammo on the main body. You're only going to be shooting the weak points. Maybe. I guess he does die fairly quick once you start getting some decent weapons and knowing where to shoot him, but yeah, I think, like, you know, if he opens up and you get that sniper shot right on one of those pustules, great, but I don't want to make him easier than he already is. So yeah, I guess upping the HP pool is the optimal thing there, and then playtest. Yeah. Playtest. So one of the most interesting things that I learned at EA that is really obvious when I think about it, but I never really put it together, when you have a long franchise, the same test team tends to do each game. Makes sense.
It does. They actually, you know, there'll be the team that does this game, and they'll do it the next time because they know the gotchas from the old one. They know the problems with that structure of game from that team, where to look for stuff. I was like, that's so obvious, but so intelligent. Me saying playtest just brought that random thought up. It happens.
That's usually why they go external for playtesters.
Grant bonus damage to pustules, but raise HP pool. Make him take around the same amount of bullets if you hit all the only pustules the whole time. Is where I would try to tune it at the beginning. Yeah,
and all of that can be math, and then just play test from there and tune it.
Yep.
But the other thing to consider when raising an HP pool is ammo amounts and how those are going to scale for somebody who can't only hit the pustules. Is that person going to have enough ammunition to get through, which sort of ties me back into weapon damage and ammunition availability. And this is also something that sort of ties into the inventory system as well. You get a lot of shit in RE8.
Mm-hmm.
Just a lot. And you have a lot of inventory space. And like the whole needing to worry about, oh God, I can't carry these shotgun shells because I have to keep my Magnum and my 5 Magnum rounds with me. Like, doesn't happen.
Yeah, I don't think I ever ran out of inventory space once in my playthrough. Or I think I did once because I just I'm not even going to buy the inventory size upgrades because I just don't need them. And then all of a sudden I hit it and it's like, okay, I'll go buy it now.
Yeah, and you had a ton of money at that point, so it didn't matter. But the ammo scaling on the weapons, I think, could use a bit more tuning. I think, and this is something we brought up in the review as well, that weapon damage scaling needs to be more damage per bullet, but you get significantly less ammo and you have significantly less inventory space. Because that ends with the feeling of, guns are still guns. They still shoot things. And when you shoot things, they generally die. And you keep the tension by going, okay, I've only got 5 bullets. How am I going to get through this section with 5 handgun bullets? Enemies would be less bullet spongy. Yes, that is something that personally really annoys me as well. So that's something that I'm trying to solve for with this. But that also, if you constrain the inventory available rather than like the huge amount of inventory that you get in 8, you're then concerned about, what ammo types do I need to carry? What guns can I carry? Can I carry throwables? Do I have room for explosives? How much healing stuff can I carry at a time? And if we go back to the paradigm of carrying combinables in the actual inventory space rather than in a crafting menu, then you get the added effect of, okay, I can only carry so much healing on me.
So I just had this interesting vision of like a small backpack inventory, more realistic, maybe even pockets that you can put ammo and stuff in, healing, little things in. And then one of the items you can find to upgrade your weapons is a strap. So you don't need to keep it in the backpack.
Yeah, they did something similar to that in the older games where you would find like belt pouches, and that would give you, another 6 squares of inventory space.
Yeah. If anyone remembers Diablo 2, as you got better belts in the game, you could carry more potions. It rose.
And like this is a whole thematic shift from how they thought about itemization in the game. It's not a simple change to make. It does require basically rethinking about almost every system. But it does put you in an anxiety-inducing situation where you're very worried about resources at all times. And that's something that I feel like RE8 was missing that was in the previous games.
It did make it feel more action arcadey. You're just running around shooting shit all the time.
Yeah.
Although you have to remember, when I played, I had a ton of ammo, partly because I killed all of those robed guys with my knife.
Yeah, I was going to say the other issue with making the gun stronger, ammo more scarce, is that it might just end up being a bit more focus on the melee combat, which I think for a lot of people it could kind of get old or repetitive or a bit frustrating.
Oh, absolutely. Honestly, you could drop the knife from the game.
Do the Resident Evil 5 approach where you just get that sick-ass roundhouse kick.
But like that, I think maybe using it as a a positioning tool rather than a damage tool, like being able to push enemies out of the way.
I was just going to say a shove would be amazing.
Yeah, a shove would be fantastic. Because then it's like, oh, these things are powerful. I can't necessarily defeat them in hand-to-hand combat because I'm not Chris. And then you have this ability to move things out of your way so that you can run away from them and go try to find ammo.
Yeah, there was a shove off when you're defending.
Yeah,
But it was kind of clunky and it was kind of situational.
I think it was only after a block as well.
So it was more like a
thinking of-
skill shot.
Yeah, I'm thinking stuff with like Dying Light or stuff like that, where you can actually just like kind of give people a shove. Like if you block an attack, you can like push things, push them back a bit or stagger them or give yourself some sort of like of offense that's not just like an attack or a kill, just so you can kind of control them a bit, so you can maybe move around them, or if they want it to be more, faster pace and moving around, they need to kind of have something like that, because it's happened a few times where if you get stuck in a corner, you're kind of screwed because they just latch onto you and there's not much you can do about it at that point because they just line up and take their turns. One guy grabs them as soon as he's off, and the other guy will, oh, it's my turn. All right, I grab you, take a bite, and then it's the next person.
Yeah. So one of the things Zelo said earlier that I was noting, and definitely wanting to come back to Zelo, I hadn't forgotten about you, it just wasn't time for that point to be made yet, was improve the knife. So maybe the improvement to the knife is sort of a redirection where there is no knife, you just push, and it does no damage.
You could also go the other way, go the Zelo route, and make the knife upgradable or find better melee weapons throughout the game.
There is a better knife in the game.
Ones that would allow you to block better, for instance. Like a two-handed weapon.
There's Chris's knife, the little tactical dagger you get. And you can use that in NG Plus as Ethan. And it's pretty badass. But it's just kind of broken at that point. Like, you don't even need guns anymore. You just use your knife for most things.
Yeah, or even like if it wasn't a knife, it was like a baton or something that you could like, maybe it doesn't do as much damage, but you can kind of stagger them or stun them or knock them back a little bit. Because like, talking about like the roundhouse kick that was in 5, that didn't really kill them all the time, but what it let you do is if you got backed into a corner, you just kind of push a bunch of them down and you can run around and try to get by them. So it was more of like a control aspect rather than just a damage aspect. Because there is a problem where if you get stuck in a corner, you do just kind of get, they just kind of stack up in a single file line, and after, like, once you know it's coming, it just gets kind of frustrating. You're like, well, what's the point? I can't get by these guys without just getting, running this gauntlet of just getting grabbed by each one after another one, and hopefully not more show up during this kind of idea. It would be nice to have that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it does come down to an intentional design decision.
Yep. I think they were going for the action feel here.
Yeah, they were going for a more action-y sort of game. And that's, like, in my opinion, the setting and the characters don't necessarily suit that. I think they should have continued with a more survival horror sort of feel to things, but they went for an action horror combat sort of feel. It was in the core gameplay loop.
Parts of the action horror make sense. Like the beast part at the end could be done well. Their combat's not good for that, but it could be done well. If they were going for HP mass rather than like just putting HP onto enemies. What I mean by HP mass is adding up all the units together for the HP. If they were putting more units down so that things went down faster, but there was just more of them, it would play so much better. But I don't think their engine would handle it very well.
Yeah, I was about to say I don't think their shooter controls would handle that very well, and I think their shooter controls need to stay consistent because it isn't an action game. Yeah,
well, I'm just saying if they want to do it the way they're doing it. Because as it is, everything it becomes so spongy because they want to have that HP level, and there's only so many enemies they can spread it out on.
I was thinking as well, I don't think Ethan was a great kind of action character for that. I think it was better in the survival aspect things. If they wanted action, they should have just kind of
give you Chris.
brought in Chris and give you Chris, or if they wanted to, do a bit of both, Ethan could have been survival sections, and then maybe it swaps over for, Chris for some action segments to give you kind of a break from the horror experience if it gets too overwhelming, right?
Yeah, I like that idea.
Yeah, after they reintroduce Chris in the game in, was it Fish Area where you see Chris again first?
We should actually write
think
some of
so.
these points down, though.
Yeah, probably.
You should probably connect and like write down the points that you make. Yeah.
So combat scaling. Inventory was too large for a survival horror.
I didn't play enough Dying Light to get the joke, but I bet Pseudo would understand.
Yeah. Dying Light also has some of the best yeet feet in any game I've played. It's the first thing I spec into. If you haven't played Dying Light, it's co-op. It's pretty fun. Get to just yeet feet a zombie off a skyscraper. It's actually got really good melee controls. I think it's probably one of the better first-person melee games I've ever played.
I definitely strayed away from it because it was first-person melee.
Yeah. It's like an actual good version of Dead Island.
Dead Island had so much promise.
Yeah, then one of the things that really frustrated me when you first started the game is that your firearms feel useless. Like just completely useless. 15 shots, an entire magazine to kill one of the lichens.
Yeah.
Like, no.
It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good. I understand the lichens are supposed to seem like really strong at the beginning, but no. Spent Death. My problem with RE8 was that it was a bit too predictable. They reused too many tropes. Well, how do you fix it?
I think the problem that's kind of with RE8 or with Resident Evil, there's only so much they can really deviate from their formula right now and still put the Resident Evil title on it. Because that's kind of the problem you get when you get a series like this, is that you kind of get into a formula because you have a base of fans that are going to expect the formula, and if you make significant changes and then release it as like a full price thing, a lot of your fan base, even if some or majority still like them, there'll still be a bunch of people who don't like them, and they may be a loud minority, and it can kind of be a huge risk depending on what those changes are. It's typically why we kind of see this predictable pattern kind of unfortunately unfold. 7 was a good leap, but there's still horror as well. They'll still kind of follow the same stuff they have, but hopefully with 9 they'll gain a bit more confidence and start to really kind of dive off in their new direction.
I mean, 7 was a big leap, but there was also a big community of people going, "This is Resident Evil! These are mold monsters, not zombies!" So that's exactly what you were talking about.
That's not a good example. Spent Death.
Yeah, I hated Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, horror's a bit different, and then even Breath of the Wild, they still stuck to their formula with a lot of the stuff. Like, it's still a Zelda game. Like, when you go into a Zelda game, you're going to be going from dungeons to dungeons and doing stuff. They added a bunch of new aspects into it, and quite a bit of them, not all of them great. But they've also kind of done that in the past before. Like, Wind Waker was a big jump. It's something that the fans still kind of, aren't as formulaic about with other things. It would be like, when Call of Duty tries to change things up and they make major changes, it's a lot more abrasive than, certain other genres, just because for the longest time, they didn't make those big changes. So once you get kind of cemented in not making significant changes in your games, that's what people who've been buying them for years get used to. And it gets, a lot more, it's a lot more to take in for them, where for people, these other genres that, each game in the series could be quite different. That's probably why they're fans of the series, because they are, decent changes that come along with each new installment.
Yeah, expectation is everything. Expectation is everything. You have to hit sales.
Although I will say that I am super sad that Silent Hills game never got made.
Yeah, me too. My God, I played PT, and it was so good, and then all of a sudden, Death Stranding is where that went, and and it was very different. But
so, how did we get from PT to FedEx? Tell me this.
I have no idea, but I really wish that whatever they had planned for PT got finalized. I think it's because he didn't want to make it as like a horror, You know, like if they were gonna put Silent Hill on it, and it's one of those things too. If it's gonna be a Silent Hill game, there's gonna be that expectation. But
Yep.
I think with Death Stranding, since it was his own thing, he got to just completely do whatever he wants with no prior expectations to it, and he can start completely fresh. And it was something that was fresh and different.
I'm
very
so
unique.
glad he's making movies now. I so look forward to his movies. I think his movies are going to be 10-hour masterpieces.
Oh yeah, they're gonna be great.
The kind of movie that gets its own Wikipedia or its own wiki
Yeah.
just to go through each thing that happened.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be great, but yeah, no, I liked a bit more game in my games than he gave me usually.
It's a small nitpick, but I do wish the guns sounded a bit better, or felt a bit more powerful.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about with this change to the combat scaling. Is it would give you the ability to make your guns more powerful and feel more powerful, rather than like plink 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 plink. Okay, that minor enemy is dead now.
Like, it's fine even to have those like small ass guns, but as long as you have like a more powerful thing that comes soon after it, so you can like use it to build off of. Like, oh, we got this small little pistol, I'm not doing much, and then all of a sudden you get the like, if you're going from like a 22 caliber to like a 45 caliber, or even get to like a deagle or something, you got to make that jump feel like a huge jump rather than just a slight upgrade that does a couple more shots, it'll kill it sooner.
Yeah, that was a big problem in RE8 too. Like the pistol upgrades that you get are like minor number bumps rather than, oh, I have a new piece of equipment. This is great. Like
Yeah.
going from that first little plinker pistol to the M1911 should be a huge damage upgrade. But if you've been upgrading your plinker pistol, it's about 10.
Yeah. Yeah. The Magnum was a nice jump up, but you don't get very much ammo on the Magnum. It's special. Special. But it still didn't have that sound or feel. Like, it didn't feel like I was firing a damn cannon in my hand. Really like how each section felt like a different fairy tale in RE8. I wish each section was more fleshed out. Yeah, they were a little short, I agree. We've definitely noted, every time we talk about the game, one of the first things we talk about is how much we love the style in each area. You can almost take a picture of a wall in any area and know that it's RE8 and what area in RE8 it is. And that is amazing style, amazing design. Yeah, they nailed it. To have a bayou and a castle and a factory and have it all look coherent is very, very well done.
Coherent and individual. You can still easily tell all of these places apart, no matter where you are in them.
Yeah.
They did a fabulous job with that.
Yeah, level design and puzzle design are so top tier that they won't be mentioned in this at all. They were great. I have not a single complaint about any of it. It was beautiful. Firearms. What about knife? We haven't talked about knife in here yet. We were talking about
yeah, that's true.
potential change to a push.
Yeah, maybe do a double level indent for that and be like change knife. Nope.
You go ahead.
Like,
You go ahead.
Okay.
I've done typing.
Change knife. Either make
They have,
it
like,
upgradable.
I don't actually really like the upgradable idea because it kind of starts trivializing everything else. I kind of like forcing towards the ammo and changing it to a push. You make the ammo a little more scarce, like you said. You're going to worry about the shots. You still have a way to get through if you need to. You can block and push your way through. You just can't kill them anymore. So it takes away your ability to remove the obstacle, but you still have a dangerous way to get by the obstacle. Did the game's progress remind anyone of Metroidvania mixed with Zelda a little bit? I could see that. I could see it having a bit of 3D Metroidvania to it. It's not really Metroidvania. It's more hub and spoke, though. With town being hub and each wing being spoke off a town. They don't really connect to each other at all.
The Zelda influence, I think, is fairly apt, though, because you do have like small pieces where you can return to old areas and unlock a new secret or something. But your main quest does not necessarily take you back to those old areas.
Yeah, I can definitely see and agree with that. But yeah, the layout of the level is very, very hub spoke rather than Metroidvania. I'm a huge Metroidvania fan.
And finally played Symphony of the Night.
It only took, I'm not going to tell you how many years.
A few.
There were a couple. When did that even come out?
Yeah, even I might just add something for
7. So it took a while.
97. 2 years off.
for
Close.
the for the knife. Either I guess either remove it or possibly make it like a baton, like more of a blunt thing for knocking things down or something like that, or because we don't necessarily need to have it be something that's equipable too, right? Like a shove can be something while you have your gun out. It'd be nice to be able to shove things back.
Yep.
And it can't be something that you spam. It can be something that you have to wait a second or two before you can kind of shove again. But
Yeah,
it'd be
feel free to add that to the list. Like I do think that that's a very good idea.
I actually agree with you on this one being the best in the series. Spent Death RE8 is actually my favorite of them. This is actually horror though. It's a little more action horror, like we talked about, but it still follows a lot of horror tropes. Oh yeah, better than RE1. Chris has even learned to read in this one.
Do we have any proof of that? Did we see him read anything?
Yep.
Oh, we did.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Yep, fine. All right.
He has data pads and stuff that he's working on.
Are you sure he isn't just working off the icons?
maybe he's writing, not reading.
He didn't shout at Weskers, though. Yeah, that's true. That's true. No, RE1 was a masterpiece, though. Like, I played it when it came out. Like, at release. And... yeah, it was something else. I had never seen anything like it in my life. It was amazing. And the first time the dogs jumped through the window, I damn near shat myself.
To address Glencon's question, I think that horror can fit in a lot of genres. I just think that because you can still do like arcade action with horror elements. Like there can be a lot of parts of the game where it's action segments, but then a lot of parts of the game where it's horror based, slowed down. You're facing something that you can't fight. That's something that kind of Alien Isolation did. There's a lot of stuff for you to fight, but then all of a sudden the main alien will show up and you can't fight that thing. So a bunch of the game is just action, and then all of a sudden there's a segment of the game that's just straight horror. You don't always necessarily have to blend those mechanics together.
I know one of the artists that worked on Parasite Eve. I'm going to get him on the show sometime, and we'll do a QA interview with him. He worked as an asset developer for Squaresoft back when Parasite Eve was made.
Which is super sick.
He also worked on Final Fantasy 7, 8.
Which is also super sick. RE4 was your first horror game. I understand why you like the action-y horror games then.
It was probably mine as well, 'cause I remember playing that way too young.
If you can call RE4 horror. It's horror.
No, it's definitely horror. Freaking Chainsaw Guys, my god. 2005. Yeah, I would have been I would have been I was young, like elementary school, when I played that game on the GameCube. And I remember just being in a house and that thing kicks in the door and I just screamed and blasted it with a shotgun, and it flies out and starts getting back up again. And I just turned off the game. I'm like, I'm gonna play this later. It was like nighttime or something. I'm like, I'm gonna play this during the day. Screw this. It was spooky.
No, I would say, Dapper, I would say that the RE4 is still a horror game. It is very much action combat focused, but it has horror segments.
Yeah, there's some parts where you don't know where a thing is, and they're doing audio cues to build tension, and that are definitely horror elements. And there's a lot of games so you can have horror and action. You can have action kind of be the what the comedic relief will be kind of for typical horror movies. Parts where the player can relax, parts where the player feels like they're in control, because a big part of horror is taking control away from the player and making the player feel uncomfortable. But you don't want to do that all the time, because then it's not really going to be a fun experience. So you want to mix that up a bit. And I think RE4 is one of the games that actually does it fairly well. It is definitely more action, but there's a lot of times where you're tense and you're like, what the hell am I doing? What the hell is coming for me? And it builds tension fairly well.
I'll be playing RE4 next.
RE6 is a game.
It is indeed a video game.
I recently beat it. I didn't dislike it, but like it was it's an interesting one. It's definitely better than Revelations 1 and 2.
And Spent Death mentioned he hates tank controls, and that's why he didn't get into the earlier ones. I totally understand. There's partial reasons that they implemented it, but unfortunately, even they've admitted that one of the reasons they did it is to make it harder to control, to make it more tense.
Yeah, it was the Wild West of game design, right? People were trying things out.
Yeah.
And then it's cemented over the years that, turns out it's more frustrating than, it's one of those things I was talking about too, with like when you want to, you're trying to find mechanics to build tension and make the player uncomfortable. And that's one thing they did, is they made the controls hard to make the game uncomfortable. But now that's the whole game. So now the whole game is kind of an uncomfortable experience when you kind of want to be able to give segments where that's not the case.
Oh man, wasn't really listening, but I am so looking forward to Deus playing RE4.
I haven't played Doom 2 enough and within a short enough time span to remember anything about it. So I can't comment on that.
I disagree with your assessment, Dapper.
Yeah, I don't know if Doom ever takes away the ability for you to rip and tear. You always kind of just feel strong.
That's true.
Part of horror is
anything that's in front of you in Doom, you just, hello, come here so I can kill you. And that's Doom.
Yeah. Horror, it gets mixed up a lot, because like a lot of people think horror is just like evil things or scary things. And what horror is supposed to be is the kind of, it's tension and the feeling of uncomfortableness. And you can get horror, a lot of modern horror now does it without monsters, without creatures. You can do like psychological horror movies are an example of that, where it's sometimes completely fictional. Sometimes it's just completely a situation where the character has no idea what's going on and they're just uncomfortable, and it's the anxiety, right, that people are trying to cause. And that's what horror movies are trying to do, and horror games are trying to do, is cause you anxiety. So just because things are evil, you can still have it be like a happy-go-lucky area, but if you implement something to cause a lot of anxiety or cause some uneasiness and make something feel off or put some uncanny valley in there, you can still kind of pull in horror elements.
I've never played Mario Galaxy, but I wish I had to be able to comment on it, because it sounds like such an interesting tangent. Who knows Mario Galaxy?
I could see it. Honestly, like a character-focused camera that you don't necessarily control, but you have to be very careful with your fixed-point camera. I could see it working for a third-person RE game.
Some of the music is designed to make you tense, specifically Ocarina's Shadow Temple. Yeah, and they're going for that kind of spooky feeling in the Shadow Temple, right? So they're totally could see them implementing some horror elements at that point.
Oh yeah, when I was like 8 or whatever and playing Ocarina of Time, and you go into the Shadow Temple and there's the zombies there and they're screaming and there's the tense music. Well, I was scared.
I hate those things so much. Especially when they grab you. My God, the first time I got grabbed by one, like, it was like a turn off the system and play this later kind of moment.
When did Ocarina of Time come out?
Yeah, I'm the old one in the panel too, Talesha, don't worry.
Today is just look up release dates of things. Oh yeah, I would have been 8 when I was playing it.
Yep. Yeah, I absolutely was not 8 when that game came out, don't worry. I may have a couple years on them. Anything else we need to address in combat?
I think the changes outlined here are like fairly significant and really changes the overall feel of the game.
Yeah.
It involves a lot of rebalancing. I like anything more than this. I think it's just a different game at that point.
Yeah, I agree. I think it already is a different game at this point. Yeah. So, I think it's time. I think it's time to address it.
The big one. The big boy.
I think I know what this is. I was surprised not to see it. I was surprised not to see it first. I was like, what if they bring it up?
We avoided it intentionally.
All right. Yeah. That's what I thought.
Okay. Now, my biggest complaint about the beginning of the game, before I go into all the reasons why of the complaint, is that it's going to cause people to not play the game.
I don't think this segment, would
and
have been as egregious later on.
Yeah. And it's going to make people not play the game for reasons that are entirely irrelevant to the entire rest of the game. It is so unrepresentative of the gameplay of anything in the game, and it is so frustrating. Just because they're terrible at delivering cues to the player. And I don't know why, because I know they can, because they did other places just fine. And I don't know how you can overlook the beginning of your game. This is player conditioning still. This is player conditioning phase of the game. You gotta design this better.
With any work of art, any non-static work of art, there's a proverb, I guess, that you really want to follow. And it's that you want to have the beginning be very, very strong and the end be very, very strong. And RE8 missed on the beginning.
Yeah, Pseudo likes horror games. He plays a lot more than I do. I don't.
Be spooked.
I like to be spooked, but I hate having to run away from things all the time.
Yeah, they're not. It's one of those things where they're not. A lot of horror games, I'd say, aren't really even like they're still games, but they're not like in traditional sense of the game. It's more of like an experience.
Yeah,
it's more,
yeah, that's a good way to put it.
It's more on like the art side of things. There's going to be less actual kind of game mechanics. It's more of like an interactive, experience. Which defined almost a game there, but it's not like you have traditional games nowadays. You have mechanics that you're used to. Horror games tend to always kind of be a bit different depending who's creating them, and a lot of the times it is kind of some of them are kind of walking simulators. So if you're not kind of invested in being spooked that way or playing in a certain way, they're not really going to be that enjoyable.
Yeah, I like watching them quite often. Sometimes not so much playing. I like streaming them. I enjoy streaming one a lot more than I would enjoy it just sitting here playing by myself.
Yeah, being able to bounce things off the audience makes a big difference. With Devotion specifically, it was a game that I wouldn't play on my own. Just not interested. But I did watch I think Ella play it.
He plays a lot
and
of horror,
I was like, oh, that was really good. I'm gonna go buy this game.
Dude, that's it's typically what I would do too. Is like I'd have friends come over and we would just beat the horror games together. Like I beat most of the Silent Hills with a good buddy of mine, and that's just kind of what we did. And you take turns on a death or take turns on a chapter, and that's kind of just like how we got through those things.
Right on. It's also a Unity game.
Yep.
Interesting. And that graphics pipeline is coming along real nice.
Yeah.
And they did some very good shader work with the game too.
And it is on PC, Dapper, by the way. Windows and OS X. It'd be cool if AAA took ideas from niche games. Well, that's exactly what they do. When the ideas in the niche games become super popular is when the AAAs start adapting them. And the AAAs, we've done whole panels on this subject. Yeah, it's true. But just to touch on it real quick, when you invest that much money in a AAA project, you need to see proof that there is significant interest in that project before you put that money in. Just like if somebody were to have come to you and you have that money kicking around, are you going to give them the $20 million they need to make the game if they can't prove to you that they're going to sell $20 million worth of units first? If it's your money and you're thinking of it this way, all of a sudden you're like, well, yeah, no, prove to me that you're going to make some money with this game first. And that's kind of where the AAAs have to be at.
Especially with their budgets being as astronomical as they are.
Yeah, not a lot of people are going to put that much money into a project that's just on a whim. And that's why we see innovation on the indie scale. And then as the indies that have fantastic ideas... But that's so risk averse, I'm more a gambler. Well, they do have the few gambles. We did a whole panel on that too. Chances AAA took. All of these are on YouTube if you ever want to hear us ramble about these subjects. Beginning of the game, entire beginning of the game. Yes.
So I don't have a problem with the sequences up until the car crash.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It may be a little slow, but it builds things nicely, and it even follows progression for horror trope, which is cool.
Actually, you know what? I'm fine after the car crash. It's literally that encounter that I have huge problems with.
Yep. We are very into video games. Pseudo is taking post-secondary studying game design. I do QE at EA, and Rage just talks about games and studies game design in his own time all the time. I just
like video games.
And we all work in software. We're all developers. If you're into game development or game art, we have communities in our Discord as well that are working together on projects all the time and building things. And I love seeing some of the work. We got some stupid smart people in that Discord. Man, they make me look dumb.
It's great.
Oh, I love it.
Being the smartest one in the room.
Oh, me too. I learn stuff in my own Discord all the time. Fantastic. I love learning stuff. The beginning of the game is unlike the entire rest of the game. There is no cue to the player to simply run and survive.
I think the text shows up that just says survive, which is just, pretty vague. Unless there's like I said, it wouldn't be as egregious if there was a shorter segment before where the same pop-up said, survive, and maybe it was like, 20 to 30 seconds, and you survive for that. And then now they do a longer one, but it says survive. The avoided condition to player to know, hey, you just got to hold out before this invisible timer ticks down. But they kind of just threw you at it. And like Resident Evil 4 did the same thing, and I think that was a throwback to 4. But 4, it was just done so much better in 4. And I don't want to spoil too much of it. But it's they don't have to explicitly tell you. It's just from the way that it's designed and the way the enemies come in, it forces you into that kind of siege mode. And they didn't really force into a siege mode with this one, And the moment you kind of leave the house, due to their enemy design and the layout design, you kind of just get screwed because you get put in a corner because you're trying to find where to go because you think you got to go somewhere. And then once you're in a corner, they just line up to take a bite out of you. You just become like a lunch line. And
there's no way you can push them off of you. But yeah, okay, so there's an option, add a timer. Obviously, I'm going to say I don't like this option because fuck timers.
Yep.
One of the major issues is that the map is so open. And there's all these places to explore while these things are coming out of the woodwork to kill you. So, it's a Resident Evil game and you've been told to explore, and player conditioning, right? Player conditioning is super important. We always have to think about player conditioning. So up until this point in the game, what have we taught the player to do? We taught him to scavenge and search. That's all you've been doing in the game. Picking up items off the ground, shoving them in your pockets, looking around, trying to figure out what's going on. So the enemies jump out, you've been given a gun, you've been told to shoot them.
They also specifically teach you that you progress by killing things.
Yep. They've given you that first kill after giving you the gun, told to shoot things. Then, all of a sudden, it's, go, survive. Okay, well, I'm going to scavenge and search. I find a path. Okay, it's taken me into another place. Oh, hey, a new gun, some upgrades. All right, we've got some new firepower. Let's go give it to these things. Oh, there's just so many of them. This gun isn't sufficient. All right, I need to go find more stuff. This is the logical thought. This is what you've taught. This is the course. That is not what the player has to do there. You need to make that marker far more obvious at that point. Maybe don't have so many options. What if you were more locked into a straight hallway and they're all coming at you from this way? You're just being pushed back. Then just let the player run all the way back to the point and trigger the scene at that back point where you're pushed into. It has the same effect. It has all the same items. And there's no frustration.
Yeah, and they don't even need to change the map all that much. They just have you hold out in the first house for as long as possible. They push you outside and they immediately show you that other house, like maybe put a wall up so you're not wandering back into areas you've already been. But they immediately show you that other house. You run around it, grab all the stuff outside, and then you go inside and hole up there. Then when they can break through there, you go up on the roof, you're holding on the roof, and just trigger it that when you get up to the roof, then you've got, a 30-second timer that you need to survive for or something like that.
I could even see, so you have a few blockades, they have blocked doors and stuff and blockades all over anyway that open up after this part because they seal you off into an area. So what if, okay, so you go into the last house, that triggers the scene of more things coming out to the point where you can't even jump down to areas around the house. So you're just surrounded. And you have to jump down into the river, which is right there. And that's when you start getting just pushed down the river. And the rest of it is just swarms of things pushing you down, and you're just running away from the river and shooting the few stray ones that come out of it that you have to deal with.
I think they would need to give you some sort of go here cue.
I don't even think you would need to if you get up to the roof and you see an opening in the river and everything else is just enemies. And that's the safe spot.
They already had fire kind of everywhere. They could have just used that a bit more as a guide.
Yep.
Rather than just as a stylistic background. I also think that would have been a good idea to use in the houses itself, is the creatures, for whatever reason, that fire is being spread by something, and I think that should have been what's pushing out of the house, because there's also going to be the skill difference between a player who can keep the enemies outside of the house versus someone who they kind of just swarm and get in, and maybe as they're getting in, they're also just kind of accidentally setting the house on fire. So regardless, if you're defending them for a while, the house just starts burning. That forces you upstairs. Then after you're upstairs, you're on the roof. Then when you're on the roof, you gotta everything's kind of on fire except for the river or the water. Kind of makes sense to then jump into the water.
And it doesn't even have to change the rest of the gameplay. You don't even have to seal the houses off. Just put some char marks all over them.
Yeah, but it's
the texture change.
Yeah, the real big thing is that siege mentality, and that was something that was in 4. Is you kind of, it's not explicitly noted, but it's very obvious that that's kind of what you should kind of do, and they make it clear by having windows get boarded up, or having you be able to, when they have the same thing too, where you can push barricades in front of doors and stuff like that, and that communicates to the player, hey, you can reinforce things, and they never really communicated it well enough beforehand to say, hey, you can block it out and keep people from getting in.
I just happened to figure it out right away.
Yeah,
I saw the yellow and went space, and oh, hey, cool, I can do this. Okay.
Yeah,
But yeah, I
and
could
then-
easily
but-
see someone missing that.
Yeah, but like you want to siege, or have some sort of warning, like maybe not just immediately it'll show up, but have like something that's they have an idea that this is what's coming. They need to kind of prepare or something, right? That can be done in a various of different ways. But I really think that if they wanted it to be a more open thing, they could have done that. But the map would have had to been quite a bit different, and it wouldn't have had to have so many dead corners and stuff like that. The kind of corner of no return works for games that are you're trying to get from point A to point B, and it's kind of more of like a maze, and you're trying to get there, and you're trying to run back, and maybe it's an enemy that you can't kill, and that creates a sense of panic. But for this one where there's just no end goal, that stuff just becomes incredibly frustrating because it's not the point of it. You're not trying to figure out where to go. You're just trying to survive, and all of a sudden you're just getting stuck, and you're just wasting time and lives just trying to get there, and then eventually you figure out that you're just supposed to wait, and it's like, well, this feels like there was a mechanic here because I felt like there's so much room to explore. Why am I not being? It's either they should have rewarded it for what you're supposed to be doing, rewarding you for staying in the house, or punished you more severely for kind of wandering around a bit more than just kind of getting stuck. Like have it, if you wander to an area, a bunch of creatures jump down in front of you there, like you can trigger a bit more of a spawn, and that kind of prevents you from wanting to peek around these corners because you're going to summon more. Then that kind of reinforces you to say, okay, I'll just stay, because every time I look somewhere, I'm summoning more of these assholes. So if I just stay still for a bit, maybe they'll be manageable.
Yeah.
And there's how do I want to say this? There's something that you said that really triggered a thought for me, which is that by encouraging this siege mentality, by making it, you are under pressure, you need to stay here, it avoids situations where the player is confused and just tries to hang out on a ladder for long enough to run the timer out. Like you would need to avoid a timer as your trigger. Like make it so that as you get to a different area, a cutscene triggers, and something that we talk about in the review as well, being able to on death trigger that event rather than punishing the player and making them do that section over and over and over because they can't figure out what the game wants them to do.
Especially since the success state in that is a fail anyways. Like,
Yeah,
we've already talked about it, spoilers. They grab you, right? And
yeah.
They could have put it in where maybe if you survive to it, you get a different cutscene, or you get a bit of an Easter egg or like a different special achievement if you can survive the onslaught. But I don't think they had to force people to survive the onslaught because there wasn't a difference, right? You still get grabbed, they still get you. You just kind of get divine intervention at that point, and I don't really think the divine intervention really would have mattered if it was 30 seconds sooner, or was if they really want that horror feel, they can just run until the player dies and they feel overwhelmed and okay, that's it. And then it can feel a bit cheap that you get saved last minute, but I mean that's kind of what happened anyways. Even if you survive to the end, you still feel kind of cheap because they come in and save you. So I don't think they really needed to punish the player too much there. There wasn't really much for them to learn because it turns out later on there's nothing there, so that punishment was just kind of a bit unnecessary.
Yeah, that's the most egregious thing to me, is that the simplest fix to all of this is just a fail success state. And it doesn't change the game in the least. And it's just a flag for them. Like, it's not a hard change. They could do it in 2 minutes. They wouldn't even need to bug test it. It's not a big deal. And it makes the game so much more playable.
Deus is not endorsing not writing unit tests and end-to-end tests.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. But it's not a difficult change. There's nothing that can really go wrong with this. You're gonna flip it and you're gonna hit build, and it's gonna run through all your pipelines, which are gonna run all your built-in tests, and then it's gonna go, everything's fine, and you're not gonna have to hand it to the players to be like, make sure this works. It's fine. It's fine. Lady D was menacing like Nemesis and Mr. X were, but felt much more nerfed. Her fight was basically a traditional flying boss. How do you make the boss better? That's the problem with these games. Like, how do you make a boss better and more engaging while keeping the mechanics that they have? Especially if we rebalance where there's less ammo, then the bosses have to go down even faster, or start having much finer shot points on them. right? Like,
Yeah,
so how do we make skill? How do we incorporate the skill to put the fear factor in it without frustrating the people who want to play horror and not a precision shooter?
The rebalance that's suggested above would change boss fights significantly, except for Heisenberg's fight because you get a tank, so it doesn't matter. But the other boss fights, it would require a lot more skill out of the player, which is why when we were talking about rebalancing Moreau, I was saying have the body take full damage, but if you hit the pustules, you get bonus damage.
More phases like RE7. So I can agree that I think okay. How about instead of more phases like RE7, more phases like Heisenberg? Heisenberg's probably the best boss fight in RE8.
I'd agree with that. Heisenberg was really good.
He's also the most elaborate boss.
Yeah,
There's the most to him.
To address Spent Death's comment, and like that's something that Resident Evil has done quite a bit in the past too, where some boss fights are just kind of unique mechanics and they provide you everything you need to actually do them. Like there are parts that shooting, but then there's also the parts that are a bit more interactive, or there's something with the environment, or there's stuff like that. So it's not even completely out of their formula to even include that. So I think that would have been something could have been nice for a few of the bosses to have.
Yeah, I think something more phased, like the only boss fight I'm thinking of that has really good phases in RE7 is the final one right now. But something more like the final boss fight in RE7, where you get your initial fight with Lady D as a lady, and then you get your fight with Lady D as a monster, and then she flies, and that's kind of what they did. Yeah, it could work. Eh.
Ammo conservation is so daft and dull for some of us. Some, but there's a lot of gaming veterans that still love it in the horror genre. It is a pretty core staple.
It might just be something that you don't like. That is entirely possible.
Yep. You hate item management. Yeah, that's fair. But there is a large like I love item management in Diablo 2. That's one of the things I don't like in Diablo 3.
Whereas I actually really like the turn off your brain and just go kill shit in Diablo 3. Different strokes for different folks.
Yep. This is why we did the panel, Why Do People Play Games? That's another one I recommend you go watch. We looked at it the other day and there was over 100 panels. We were like, wow, we've done this a couple times. Yeah. Turns out we had something to say. Most of it was about Dark Souls.
Or basically anything made by Miyazaki and From Software.
Yeah. Mostly because you played enough Counter-Strike. Fair. Sisters had a cool mechanic like opening windows before they're vulnerable. Yeah, I like how they worked the lore into it too. I felt like that was a really good idea, but they could have gone further with it mechanically. I agree. They could have made they were kind of mini boss-ish. They could have added more rooms to them so that you shoot a window in one room and they charge to another part of the room or another room entirely, and there's a new spot you've got to find and shoot to make them vulnerable, and maybe there's boards up over it with some yellow that you got to knock off before you can get the window broken open, stuff like this. Little stages to it could definitely be evolved into.
I can see that if the game was episodic, because that would mean that the castle is basically a whole game in and of itself. Mm-hmm. And then you would need to flesh out the other areas more, make them into whole games in and of themselves, and just like do sort of a Final Fantasy VII remaster or Hitman style release schedule. And I would have boycotted the shit out of that.
I think even if like because one thing I saw a streamer do was that like they're walking around, they started then opening all the windows they came by. They're like, oh, just in case they show up, and that didn't really end up really mattering because most of those encounters are mostly scripted. And I think it would have been a bit better, like just maybe exploring that mechanic a bit more, having it a bit more useful, or like rewarding the player a little bit if they plan ahead and, first thing they do is start breaking windows, and maybe they do show up to kind of just harass you, maybe not just full up kill you, but harass you enough that, maybe if you were smart enough and had the window open, they show up and immediately just get angry and piss off, or they show up for a bit and you got to break a window and then they mess off for a bit.
It would have been nice to see more of the daughters throughout the castle.
Yeah, I would have liked the castle to be a bit more of just like outside the castle was quite a bit of action. I would have liked the castle to be the kind of survival horror aspect where they are just strong. I mean, it's their home, right? And you are just kind of an intruder, and you're just trying to get through it, and they are just going to try to hunt you down and harass you. And I would have liked a bit more kind of organic feel to that, not so much where it's like scripted encounters, but I kind of would have liked, they just kind of show up and, they're not really going to be killable, but you can get them to leave. You can, I guess they want to be careful about wasting too much ammo, but having the mechanics of maybe you're in a room with no windows and you got to then, quickly get as much light as you can into this room, or you got to get somewhere where there's some light or something like that. They could have worked with that a bit. Get a bit more horror, and then there would have been a lot of horror going into certain hallways because there's no windows, right? And you're like, well, shit, I got to be careful, making sure that these things aren't going to show up while I'm here. Like, do I have enough supplies to deal with them if they show up while I go down this hallway?
Yeah, already the castle is a fairly long segment of the game, though. So can we agree that if anything needs to be extended in the game, it's the dollhouse?
100%.
Yeah.
More Dollhouse, please. Dollhouse was amazing.
Dollhouse segment was too short in relation to the rest of the areas of the game. It's not that it's too short. Short's fine. You can make a short game. If you make a short game and you leave us wanting more, then great. You scoped your project so well. You spent your money nice. Everything's polished. Everything's in the right place. You couldn't do a lot because you didn't have a lot of money, but what you did was great. That's a good project. But it's just this little tiny teaser in the middle of all these big sections, and it was one of my favorite, and I'm just like, give me more of this. What are you doing? I know you had the money, you're Capcom.
Their big cash series are their fighting games, and they haven't been doing so hot recently.
Yeah, I know. That's what happens when you try to milk a stone.
And
That's another.
Monhun always sells like gangbusters.
That's true. Monhun does well. I got Eidos with Hitman. I didn't play any of the Hitmans. Pseudo was a Hitman fan.
I like them. I don't hate the episodic format that they've done now, but that's mostly just because they've brought in all the legacy episodes in as well, which makes that a bit, not as egregious. But I enjoy them. There's a crowd for them. I mean, they're action puzzle games.
Haven't seen an implementation of it that would work. Gotta think more. Love that attitude. Just because it hasn't worked yet doesn't mean it can't. It just means we haven't figured out how to do it. It's totally worth working on. It's how some of the greatest fusions come out.
If it was done more like old school expansion packs, I could see it working. Like you buy the base game for full price, and then $40 for the next bits. Then that would be less bad. It would still feel weird though, not getting the complete story out of an RE game, because RE has consistently been like, here's a complete chapter of the story from start to end. You would have to change the flow of the story quite a bit to make that work, and that would make me sad.
Hey, hear me out. Resident Evil Season Pass.
Battle Pass as well, on top of that.
And Glen Con.
Yeah, I was actually just about to do the same thing. You can see yourself out, sir. So, Dollhouse is too short. How do we make it longer without ruining it?
Pre-order DLC.
God damn it.
Oh,
You're enjoying that. That's gonna start happening. It's like, oh, you can only get this cool section if you pre-order.
How would we make it longer though?
Waiting for the video game equivalent of that. What, a follow-up that is better than the original? There's lots of those. Capcom really should make an EA Survival Sandbox RE game. Pre-order. Stay EA for 5 years.
Gotta love early access. It's just always early. I think there's some games that are hitting their 10-year alpha anniversary now and are still in alpha. And it's just like, at what point do we just come up with a new term for subscription games? Or just like games that will never be done and will always find ways to get more money because it will never actually be done, but they keep working on it, which means is they're using resources and spending money. Just sell a subscription already, my god.
I mean, they can call it alpha all they want. As soon as they start releasing it to consumers, it's a beta.
No, as soon as they start charging money for it, that's full release. The way I think that we could extend the Dollhouse segment without ruining it is adding more complexity to the puzzles around the mannequin. Because those puzzles were very simple, and I think sort of an appropriate difficulty level, but at the same time, there weren't very many of them, and when you see them, they're kind of just like, oh, I get it. So maybe more puzzles around that mannequin, and more sort of lore radio bits between the puzzles. Because the first time you're going through there, you don't understand the lore that they're giving you through those radio segments, and it's explained later, which I think was actually really well done. Because at the time, it's very much like building this atmosphere of horror, and you don't understand what's going on, and what are you being influenced by.
Okay, so
but I think just some more of that.
Okay, I've put that note down for you. But here's where I fall, okay? It's going to change the pace of everything. And we need more horror in there as well, not just the puzzles. So maybe these puzzles end up involving the baby chasing you more often between them. So there's more baby segments as well. Like you'll do a puzzle and that'll open up to an area where the baby's in there and you've got to run around in that area and do your thing, but then you're back at the mannequin. Maybe the mannequin's a safe room from the baby, but the baby can get into the other areas. So you're at the mannequin, that's kind of where you have your thinking spot, your more complex puzzle, because you don't want to be running for your life and having to hide while trying to think of a complex puzzle.
Yeah.
You need to give the player time to stop and think for that part.
There were, what, 3 puzzles when you were being chased by the baby?
Yeah, I wouldn't even call them puzzles.
Extremely simple.
Yeah, I wouldn't even call them puzzles. And the main puzzle part, like when you're taking the mannequin apart and looking at it and everything, the baby's not released yet at that point.
Yeah.
Right, so once the baby gets released, it's really just run and grab this and take it over here and pick up this over there and take it over here and then pick up this over here and take it over there. It's like 3 little fetch quests, basically, is the rest of the segment. I wouldn't even call them puzzles. They're little fetch quests. There's only one place they go. You pick up a relief of a baby, you're like, oh, this goes in the door where there was a relief missing. Like, this is not a puzzle. But if we take that room and make that the think spot and then expand the house a little bit, then you can make those puzzles more complex and mix in the horror so that you keep your pacing, and with the more horror, you also have more breakups with your puzzles to space out that horror. So there's running for your life and being eaten alive by this thing you can't kill. And then, okay, I get to do puzzle and play game now.
So I had another thought that could be brought into that section. The dolls. The dolls just look at you. They just stand on their shelves or on the floor, and for some reason, the floor dolls are way more creepy than the shelf dolls. But the you could have the dolls, be moving around to add this sense of like something's not right here. And the dolls could, maybe not deal some damage. They take away your inventory, but the dolls could, blockade you out of certain rooms, so you have to take a different path rather than the one that you were on, forcing you to think a little bit more about how you're going to achieve the solution to whatever you're working on at the time.
Yeah. Puzzle solving while being chased, totally fine, but not complex puzzles. If we're doing complex puzzles, we need to give the player time to think and solve.
That's a very good point, Glencon. Glencon feels that the limited interaction with the baby was what held its horror impact. If you were exposed to it more often, it would cheapen the horror. I think that's a very good point. And we could use the dolls as an additional source of some interaction, some horror, to sort of keep the impact that the baby had, while still adding a little bit more interactivity during the puzzle segments.
I didn't really play the Silent Hills because Spent Death. I hate tank controls too.
I have played them. I don't remember there being something like that, but there's quite a bit of just whenever their big bad is chasing you, whether it be Pyramid Head or I can't remember whatever it transitioned into later. The being chased in puzzles can be fine, but it can have a varied mileage depending on the users, and as well as the game being a lot of action based. That can be quite egregious for some users, and I think that's probably why they didn't want to do too much of that. They can keep it simpler. It's not as bad if there's a way to lose the thing chasing you. So you go and try and solve the puzzle, and something kind of shows up and scares you off, and you have to get out of there and then lose it or fight it off, and then or get back to some sort of safe area and then try to get back to it. But that's usually reserved for kind of stealth and sneak games, and I don't know if that would have really fit for this scenario too much.
It's too action to start including stealth and sneak, and you're doing too much at that point.
As well as then what kind of happens is once the player knows that they're just being chased while trying to solve the puzzle, they'll either find what it is and pause, search it up, or they'll just trial and error it and just get kind of it'll lose its effect pretty fast. It'll build tension for the first time or two, and then immediately kind of just become a less effective mechanic.
Mm-hmm. So I've been thinking about what Glencon was saying, and also what Rage was saying with the dolls. I agree, they're highly underutilized and they're super creepy. So you could have the baby segment at the
floor dolls, man.
You could have the baby segment at the beginning, push you into that puzzle room. And then the horror elements that mix up that puzzle room are dealing with the dolls.
Or vice versa, really.
And then the baby comes at the end again. And the baby is what pushes you towards the boss and locks you into the boss encounter with the doll. And then it kind of goes baby doll, and you don't expect the baby at the end. You're like, you've dealt with it, you kind of finalize it and lock it in a place so you can deal with your puzzles, not expecting to see it again. And then you will know how annoying magical/obscure state transitions can truly be. Also, having obscure objective and being forced to be chased is quite annoying. If you want a good example of bad execution, Remothered Broken Porcelain. Never even heard of it.
I have a confession. I've never played the hexing games.
Neither have I. Clock Tower series died because of it. I played the first Clock Tower and I hated it. But that's not a comment on Clock Tower itself, because as I've stated earlier, I just hate games where I have to run from something and can't fight it. It's a fine mechanic, and it makes good games, and very artistic and beautifully done and polished games come out of it, and they're great, and I'm glad people love them, but it's not me. Action games are perfect for level design. Oh, I do love good level design. I mean,
Well-
I almost finished The Surge just because of the level design. There's not a lot going on in that game other than level design. Game is not a sample of... Oh, the game is not a sample of good level design, I see. That's unfortunate. Okay. Then I won't play it. I'm good. I'm cool. If the baby is used too much, it could lose its effect. The dolls were heavily underused and could fill additional gaps. Hellpoint is a good example. You saw me play it. Yeah, it was very, very average.
The what got GlenCon?
Just making sure you're paying attention. So really just make more complex puzzles and use the baby not so much more, but implement the dolls that were kind of unimplemented. I mean, they were creepy. And dolls is a straight up horror trope. There is a whole number of people that have a fear of dolls. That was something we pointed out in 7 when we were reviewing it as well, is every area touched on an actual phobia. And maybe the castle in this one didn't really have much phobia to it. Maybe bugs, but
No, bugs and vampires.
is vampires a phobia? It's a horror story, it's a horror trope, but I've never been anyone like, oh, I'm terrified of vampires. Yeah. The fear of the unknown will always be more terrible than the fear of the material. Yeah, well, phobias are a real thing, and I've seen people become like catatonic and unable to act because there's a little spider in the corner of a room, so I don't know about never, but the fear of the unknown is a legit thing, for sure, and Subnautica thrives on it.
Yeah, fear of the unknown is just anxiety. It's just build anxiety because you're unsure and uncertainty.
But that's only during the scissor encounter, GlenCon, so I wouldn't consider it a doll mechanic, and I'd consider it a mechanic of the boss encounter.
Yeah, like the dolls could easily be used to force you through different paths during the puzzle section. They could also have some interaction where you could like hit spacebar to kick them out of the way.
I thought those were tied to the dolls. Good point. Yeah, it won't happen until the boss starts. Are you talking fetuses and a trope in horror yet? Not are talking fetuses a trope. They're not quite a trope, but I could see that being terrifying.
Yeah.
And it was.
Whatever Death Stranding's doing. Norman Reedus and the Funky Fetus. I really wish that was the title.
You know, I'd probably buy it if that was. I'd be disappointed, but they would have got my money. For this reason, having two nasty spiders might be a bad thing. Yeah, I remember people hated the spiders in Path of Exile at first. They moved too real and were so creepy.
The game I'm playing through right now with some people, it's Grounded, which is basically like a Honey, I Shrunk the Kids survival horror, and it's got spiders, but thankfully they also have an arachnophobia setting. So for people who that's just a bit too much for, I think you can disable them, or it turns them into something else. Or something. I should turn it on and see what it does, but I saw that was in the accessibility settings, and I thought that was really neat. Because
that's an awesome inclusion.
Yeah, shouts out to Grounded. Oh, yeah. Of course, makes sense. What? Obsidian paid attention and had great care and responsibility with their game? I'm shocked and amazed by this. Go buy Obsidian games. Buy all of them. Go support Obsidian. They do wonderful stuff. You won't even be disappointed, because I don't think I can think of any bad games they've made. I'm sure there's one or two. They've made so many. Sounds like a good setting if you sell it as a feature to them at first impression. Otherwise, they might just see Spider and run away before the feature is made known.
Yeah, that's one of those settings that you want to just have a pop-up
Yeah,
the first time you launch the game and just be like, hey, if you're scared of spiders, there's the setting here.
Yeah, I believe it it tells you at the beginning. I'm actually reading through it right now, and it's actually a lot more it's a lot more fleshed out than I thought. It's not just like a toggle, it's an arachnophobia safe mode, and there's 5 levels of it. And each one it's a small divergence, I know, but it's a really, really interesting thing that they did.
We always do news. I think we've done RE8 pretty damn well. We've got 5 minutes left. Let's talk about this. This is interesting.
Yeah, I sent you the link to it, and you can scroll through it. It's really neat. Yeah, it kind of just the last slider just completely makes it not look like a spider, but it keeps the enemy there. Because I was wondering what they're gonna do, because the spiders are like a pretty big enemy in the game. So I'm like, well, what are we gonna do if we, turn this on? Like, what would happen? And it basically just makes them look and sound less spider-like, but are still enemies that you have to fight. And the more you crank that dial up, the less spiderly they get.
Huh.
But they're still a main enemy to fight.
That's really cool. The first level just kind of takes the legs off. And it just turns it into a body. So if it's the legs moving that creeps you out, then you're good.
Which I think it is, because that's what creeps me out about spiders.
Yeah.
If they were just a fucking little ball moving along the wall, I don't care. But it's like when you get the giant legs that are just like, because they're so fast. So I'm assuming when they take the legs off, it's going to be on the ground going at you, not just hovering in the air, because they look kind of ridiculous. But it's a really cool inclusion. I'm assuming that probably came out of like some devs probably had a rough time working with the game and freaking on it, because like arachnophobia is actually pretty common.
It is super common.
Spiders mess you up. But it's really cool to see the level of, detail that went into it. They didn't just cut it, and they didn't just, have it toggle on and off. They actually put levels into it.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Incredibly well done.
I also hate spiders in this game. I don't put the setting on, but my God, they get you. You walk into an area and there's just like giant webs everywhere, and if you hit the web, you trigger it, and they have like regular spiders as well as like a wolf spider, and they are so fast. I hate it, but I also love it, because my God, I like a challenge, but my God, it's like, no. You walk by, I'll go into a tunnel, there's just like a wolf spider sleeping, and I'm like, I wanted to go through there.
So we might go a touch late, but Spent Death just mentioned your favorite game, Alien Isolation, and he said that one actually worked on him for horror. So I kind of want to know why, because that game does do something very, very special, and before we say it, I want to know how much Spent Death knows about this, and does he understand why that one gets him? It's a good hide-and-seek game.
It is a very good game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we praise this game often. I mean, if it's one of Pseudo's favorites, then that's saying something. Pseudo knows a thing or two about games. Turns out.
Yeah, the alien with 2 brains.
So yeah, there's a genuine sense of I'm not safe in Alien Isolation. More than any other survival horror.
The moment you start feeling like a badass, the fucking alien shows up. Checks your ego in place.
So Spent, you'll be interested in this. It's terrifying to get hunted and killed. Yeah, so and you never know if it's actually going to find you or not. And the reason you don't know if it's going to find you or not is because it actually doesn't know if it's going to find you or not. There are 2 different AIs working side by side to control the alien, and it only chooses one path. And this creates a really interesting and unpredictable divergent AI reaction. And it makes it terrifying, because you cannot predict it. It cannot predict it, so you cannot predict it.
Yeah, it's the main thing is that humans are pretty good at pattern matching and getting into a sense of rhythm, especially if you know what you're looking for. Like, if you played Outlast, you probably noticed right out of the gate that when you hide in a locker, the NPC will always kind of check the locker to the side of you and then, fuck off and leave. And then once the first time, you're terrifying. He's like, "Oh my god, he's gonna check my locker." He walks up to you and then goes to the locker beside you and opens it and then leaves. And then the second time you're like, okay. And then the third time you're like, oh, okay, I get it. You know, it's scripted. It's the same thing and whatever. But Alien Isolation, sometimes it checks the locker beside you, and sometimes it just checks your locker, and you're like, oh shit, like, oh, and you were hiding the whole time. It just decided to start checking lockers because it was like, I'm gonna do this now. And sometimes you'll be hiding somewhere else, and you'll just see it checking lockers or doing something else. There's nothing that's like concrete, you know, what you can do. You kind of just, it was a bit of luck, but you can't predict it, which is good because you feeling lucky with this stuff is kind of a thing you need to, or it's a nice balance for horror because it puts your skill in check. It doesn't matter how good you are if you have to put in luck into it, and luck's a really, really hard thing to balance in games alone, let alone a horror game, let alone an AI that's, you know, trying to hunt you down. You know, if it's too hard, then it gets frustrating. If it's too easy, then it feels kind of silly and stupid, but they've balanced it quite well.
Yeah, I mean, the game has to draw you, so the game knows exactly where you are. So managing what the enemy chasing you knows becomes a very daunting task that becomes very expensive, that some people in our Discord are actually trying to work on a similar problem right now, and boy, there is some discussion on that one. It is a job.
Yeah,
It's tough.
the AI director for Left 4 Dead 2 is also really cool, and it's a really big one out for Valve, and also just kind of when we talked about like the mileage between players, that's a really kind of a tool that helps with that too, because if a group of players is, you know, not as skilled or not as aggressive, the game would automatically scale to adjust for that. Whereas if the group of players is, you know, quite skilled and pushing quite hard, the game would then, you know, be a lot more aggressive and throw a lot more horror and do a lot more stuff to it, which means that on both sides of that skill level, without having to change difficulty settings, the game would adapt to the playstyle to still give them, you know, as much as they could handle, as much as they could hold. I really wish that, like, if Insurgency had something like that, I think that'd be awesome. If you get like a solid group of people, if all of a sudden the enemies just started, like, either more of them would show up or they get a bit more, you know, slightly more deadly or slightly more tactful, I think it would be cool as well. But yeah, it's a real nice addition.
I feel like just like more of them and more aggression would be great. Because I already get one tapped a lot in that game.
Yeah, it wasn't so much like their aim, but like I would love them to. There's so many times where you're just like, well, where are they?
Yeah,
they're just like
more
around the corner, and I just want them to be a bit more aggressive, or they'll like push the point, or they'll start chucking. It's happened to me a few times where they'll start chucking nades at you, or they'll start shooting RPGs just kind of in your general direction, or just have them start rushing a bit more, which does. I'd really have to deep dive and do an analysis on it, because I swear that the AI changes so much, and like it's already changed now with you guys getting higher levels we're playing, because when we first started playing, it was like, this is really easy, like playing without really thinking, and now a bunch of our games were like, oh, we really need to bunker down and like figure out what the hell's going on, and we're starting to get a lot more kind of last man standing clutch finishes.
I did one. It was me.
It was real good too. It was a real good one.
Yeah.
He's not dead, he's prone. He's just sitting up there. I hate that so much. I swore that wasn't always in the game, because I had to get adjusted to that too.
Yeah, that's always like, you shoot them and you think you hit them, and then they go prone, and you're like, okay, he's dead, and then you get shot, and you're like, no.
That guy had a saw too. Like, if Pseudo hadn't told me, I would have been dead as shit.
The alien adapts to weapons too. Initially, the flamethrower would make it flee to vents and such, but if you overuse it, the alien eventually gets pissed off and will rush through the burst and gets you.
You can shoot the alien, it just doesn't do anything.
It does something, it just doesn't do something for long. You only remember the hide and seek. That's the best way to handle it.
Yeah, most of the time, if you're trying to interact with the thing, it's just going to end up killing you. So there's not a whole lot of room for error.
It's basically the Safety Reaper. Good old Sammy. You tend to lose those encounters too. All right.
We made it through a panel without talking about FromSoft.
Hey.
I joked about it once. I joked about it, but we didn't actually talk about the game.
Dark Souls, they did this.
Yeah, that didn't happen the whole time. We were pretty actually, you did what? No, I brought them up, but we didn't talk about them as like a game and use the design as a reference or anything.
I'm proud of us. We're broadening our horizons.
Yeah, we're getting better. We're getting better. Go play Dark Souls.
It's a good game.
Yeah.
Also Bloodborne.
Yeah, Bloodborne's fantastic. In fact, PS5s are becoming more and more and more available now, which means more and more people are selling their PS4s, and that means the price is going way down. So go buy a PS4 and play Bloodborne if you haven't. It's worth it. No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. Bloodborne's basically perfect. It just needs to run better.
Yeah. Change nothing.
Needs PC port.
Yeah. Give me 60 FPS PC port.
Just give me PC port. I'll just throw more hardware at it. It's fine.
Well, if they lock it to 30 FPS, it doesn't matter what you do.
Oh yeah, and a frame unlocker.
There you go. I've heard people saying Sony might port Bloodborne to PC soon. People have been saying it for a long time. I predict a PS5 release for at least like 6 months before a PC port is announced.
At least.
Did you not use your eyes? You didn't stare hard enough? I'm confused. The grinding health pots is bad mechanic for people who fail too much. Stop failing then. Games don't have to be easy and accessible. The game feel doesn't click with me for some reason. Yeah, and it doesn't have to be for everybody.
Fair enough.
But as far as level design, boss design, story, and mechanics being interwoven with the feeling of exploration and unease and intentional emotion being drawn out of the player at specific times, I've never played a game more perfect.
Yeah, it is not the highest point on any of our individual review categories, but the combination thereof is the best that I have seen. And the Bloodborne DLC is literally the best. You're wrong, Dapper. Literally the best gaming content I have ever played.
Really underwhelming to me. It was like over before. Yeah, I agree. The doll boss could be expanded onto. We'll throw that in at the end. But it is actually, unfortunately, time to go eat food. I probably will be back to play games at some point. Probably Insurgency, I bet. I'm going to be dragged into some of that. And maybe some Sekiro. I can finally get back to my Sekiro run now that I've finished the Jedi run I started on May 4th.
Took a month.
You finished it within the month at least.
Yeah, I still finished it in May. They really nailed with Dark Souls 1. Estus Flask is often... I agree. Estus Flask is one of the coolest healing ideas ever, but it doesn't fit into Bloodborne at all. Miyazaki is all about mechanics fitting story and lore. The story is written first and the game is built around it with him. And it's just such a masterpiece. Dark Souls changed how I think of game design.
It's kind of beautiful.
Yeah.
Like before Bloodborne came out, Dark Souls was by far my go-to, like, this is how you design a game. And then Bloodborne came out and Bloodborne became my go-to, this is how you design a game.
Miyazaki is a master. He really is. And I can't wait to see his take on the open world genre.
Yeah. And like, as somebody who really doesn't like open world, the inconsistent parry mechanic, what? No.
He's just messing around.
Well, it is a lull at the end, but it does not work on every attack, which is odd.
It doesn't work on some enemies. Anyway, I was somewhat reluctant to, sort of follow the studio, so to speak, and just blindly accept that they're doing an open world game. But I'm definitely going to try Elden Ring.
Yep, Elden Ring. Yeah, Elden Ring is supposed to be open world, the one that he's doing with George R.R. Martin. So George R.R. Martin is working on the world story with him. And as I understand, it's going to be kind of Mega Man-ish open world, where you gain new abilities by killing bosses. You go around and find enemies and kill them, and that's how you gain new abilities. Yeah, well, he didn't do DS2, right? Yeah. It's not a Miyazaki game. He didn't want to make 3 either, but they made him do it. And when 2 was happening, he was just a special advisor on the project, really. And that was when he was building Bloodborne. And Bloodborne is his baby. He put 150% of his blood, sweat, and tears into that game, and you can tell when you play it. Everything is connected and thought out. Like, every picture hanging on a wall has lore behind it. The game is just a masterpiece. He was not paying attention to DS2 while he was making that game at all. His mind was entirely on Bloodborne. You don't get that kind of a project if you're doing 2 things at the same time. Yeah. Okay. Let's actually wrap this up. Spent Death, thanks for hanging out. It's been an absolute pleasure to meet you. I love your ideas. I hope you come and join us more often. You made it a good conversation. We got lots of great ideas out of it. Gentleman Dapper, always a pleasure when you're around. Thank you very much for being here. Val, nice to see you. Lurkers, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something. And until the next time I get to see you, I'm Deus.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Rage.
And I'm Pseudo.
And may all your shots be headshots.